This is Between Realms and Reason, bridging the inner and outer cosmos, one conversation at a time. Here's your host, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello. For every so often, life hands us a moment that stops us in our tracks and forces us to ask questions we've been avoiding. For John Strelecky, that moment came when his dream career as an airline pilot suddenly collapsed. But what looked like failure became the doorway to purpose. And from that doorway emerged the Café on the Edge of the World, a book that sold over 11 million copies and been translated into 45 languages. Through its deceptively simple story, John Strelecky poses three profound questions. Why are you here? Do you fear death? And are you fulfilled? Questions that don't just reframe our perspective, but have the power to redefine the course of our lives. John Strelecky joins me today to share his remarkable journey, the philosophy behind his work, and the enduring power of stories that remind us what it truly means to live with purpose. John Strelecky, welcome.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Great to be here. Great to see you.
So you were a pilot one day, and then suddenly that part of your life was gone. How did that collapse lead you to writing your first book?
Yeah, it was a process, to be honest with you. I had been working since I was 12 years old to save money to go to university. We did not have a lot of money. And so it was everything I had invested emotionally, mentally, financially in this dream. And then it was all taken away over something I had no control over. I was diagnosed with a very, very rare heart situation that only impacts like 1 out of 100,000 people and only matters if you want to be a pilot or an astronaut, which was just coincidentally what I was tracking towards. And so it was all taken away from me. And the year that I found out, it was absolutely horrible because, again, I had invested so much in that dream. But as you mentioned, in the rearview mirror of life, often you see that there was actually something that was guiding you in a different direction. And so I have the opportunity now to do something that I so love and I've been doing for decades and having a positive impact on the lives of others. And, flying a plane would have been great, but it would have been nothing compared to what my life is now. And so, the universe was kind enough to smack me across the forehead with a giant 2x4 and cause me to look at life from a different perspective.
So what was the very first spark of the idea that became the Café?
Well, I left everything behind when I found out I couldn't fly and couldn't follow the pilot dream, I ended up going back to school and pursuing an MBA and then worked as a strategy consultant for about 5 years, very left brain activities, although I added some creative elements to what I did for sure. But I was in my early 30s and was looking at life and just thought, if I keep tracking the way that I'm tracking, will I be happy with my life? And the answer was no. I looked at people that were 10 years older than me and nothing wrong with them or their life, but it just wasn't the life that I was desiring. I had dreamed of being an adventurer since I was a little kid, and here I was not really doing much that was adventurous. And so I left everything behind in my early 30s, backpacked around the world for a year on about $40 a day, and got to go to Africa and see all the amazing animals and people and cultures that I'd dreamed of seeing, got to travel around the world and see all these amazing experiences, have these amazing experiences. And it was coming back from that, once I was back, that something inside of me said, sit down and start typing, like literally said, sit down and start typing. And I was in such a wonderful intuitive connection place, which you do when you're traveling in places that you don't speak the language, you don't know the cultures, you really just have to trust your intuition. So that field was very open for me at that point. And so when this essence said, sit down and start typing, I sat down and started typing. And over the course of 21 days, I saw an entire story unfold in front of me. I could hear the characters saying what they were saying. I could see the scenes. And my job was just to try and get it all down on the keyboard as fast as I could. And at the end of 21 days, it felt done. And for people that have read The Café on the Edge of the World, what I read at the end of those 21 days is basically almost word for word what is in the book, The Café on the Edge of the World. So I always say I don't necessarily think that I chose to be an author as much as the story chose me to be part of the conduit to its existence.
And it sold 11 million copies. Wow.
The reaction has been so beautiful from people around the world. And, that was one of the early indicators to me that this was so much bigger than me. I mean, just the way that it happened was obviously a clear indicator. And then there was just moment after moment during the process that was validation from that. And I think that's an important takeaway, like a major life lesson, that when you are following your intuition, when you're following your purpose, you're going to get these clues that tell you you're on the right path. And it's really important to allow yourself to listen to those clues, because the left side of the brain can be very clear that, oh my gosh, there's 1,000 reasons why this doesn't make sense. Look, there's 500,000 books produced every year. What makes you think your book is going to do anything? But I luckily, again, got these sparks and influences, which really helped keep me going and keep moving forward. In the first year, I designed a website, and this was back before all the great tools we have today. So it was horrible, Sandie. This was easily the worst website in the history of websites. I didn't know how to code, so the header line would be like randomly on the left side sometimes. The images would be randomly somewhere on the page. And it didn't matter. Like, people were buying the book. I think we sold books from 24 different countries in year one. And it was all people telling other people that they cared about, that this was a story that they should get. So yeah, there was something far bigger than me energetically associated with this project, and it was manifesting on a day in, day out basis.
Many people find your books in times of struggle. Do you think that pain and struggle are necessary for awakening?
Well, I love the Buddhist expression, dissatisfaction is the first step to enlightenment. And when I really break that down, it's such a simple, like not even that many words phrase. But I think it's very true in my own story that when we are dissatisfied, the question is, well, what would change our state? What is it about this moment that feels dissatisfying? Is it the relationship that I'm in? Is it the job that I'm doing? Is it the degree to which I feel like I'm being authentic in my life? That's what was missing for me. I didn't feel like I was being adventurous, and I felt like time was passing by. And so allowing ourselves to sit in that dissatisfaction is, I think, one of the greatest elements of the cosmic algorithm of the universe, that it's an indicator to us that something is off, but we don't have to stay off. Like, we can adjust our trajectory if we allow ourselves to, but it only happens by sitting in that discomfort for a little bit and really asking ourselves the tougher questions about, why am I feeling this discomfort? So yeah, I'm not saying I'm happy that it's part of the storyline, but I think it can be a great indicator that it's time for something to change if you want to be living the life that you want to live.
Yeah. In the Café on the Edge of the World, I mean, these 3 questions drive the narrative. Where did they come from?
That same beautiful place as the rest of the story, which is out there somewhere in the ether. When I was going through the process and the story was flowing through me, like I said, the questions just flowed like everything else. So why are you here is the very first question on the Café menu. And that's a question that I was asking myself for as long as I could remember, because I was struggling even as a child to understand the way the human experience works. Like, what is the point of this all? It seemed like humanity consisted of, you go to school for a really long time, then you get a job and you do that for a really long time. It seemed to me like 90+% of people, maybe 95% of people didn't like their job. And then finally, if you're lucky enough, you get to retirement age and then you get to go do the fun stuff. And that seemed to be the pattern that I was noticing as the human experience. And even as a little kid, I was like, that just seems off. Like, really? That's the best we can do with this? And so that, I think, was a fundamentally driving force for me to ask myself as a kid, even, like, how does the game work? How do you win the game of life? What is the point of the game of life? And so that's question 1. Why are you here? And I think the answer is going to be different for every single person. I don't think there is a collective answer for all of humanity, although there might be. And we can talk about that, because that's a very deep question. Then, like, what is the whole point of the human piece of the whole universe, right? But the second question is, do you fear death? And what I find in my life is that, and this is one of the lines from the book which flowed through me, one of the main characters says, people don't fear dying. What they fear is getting to the end of their life and realizing that they haven't lived. And even as I say those words now, I just get chills up and down my spine. I just find so much truth in that. And again, it wasn't that I said that, it was the character saying it, and I heard it and wrote it down, and that's why it became part of the book. And I think that's true. And the older I get, the more I realize just how precious different phases of life are. And once they're gone, they're gone. Like, you'll never get them back. If you're the parent of a child and your kid is 2 years old, well, on the day they turn 2, you've got 365 days to appreciate being the parent of a 2-year-old. And on day 366, that's over. You're never going to get it back. And so life is that times 1,000 different other things. And so it's really about allowing ourselves to embrace the phases that we're in so that we can look back with zero regrets. And that takes real conscious effort. It takes courage to take the steps to bring those things into your life. But in my mind, that's one of the greatest questions to ask ourselves. And the last one is, are you fulfilled? And that requires, again, a really honest sit-down discussion with yourself to say, is the life I'm living the life that I want to live? Is it the life that fulfills my purpose? Because I do believe every single human on the planet has a purpose. They have genius within them. And it's about letting that genius out in whatever way that is. Maybe they're going to be, again, an amazing parent. Maybe they're going to be an amazing accountant. Maybe they're going to be the best baker that's ever is. I don't know. Maybe they're just going to be an incredible traveler, and that's their purpose. But I do believe that allowing ourselves to ask those questions opens up a field of pure potential that is so much more gratifying than just the average everyday. I go to school, I don't like it. I go to work, I don't like it. And I hope for the reward at the end.
Are you fulfilled?
I am. Yeah. And it's funny because sometimes it takes, don't get me wrong, every life has challenges, and aging is a challenge. The way I feel physically, I was playing volleyball the last 2 days, which is a sport that I love. I feel a lot of pain today, Sandie. And when I was in my 20s and I played volleyball for 2 days in a row, that just meant I would play the third, fourth, fifth day in a row with no problems. And so just the fact that you are getting older as a human being means that you're going to experience a different reality. So just about the time you think you've got life all figured out, the game is going to change and change again and change again. So you can be fulfilled in this moment, and then the algorithm will say, okay, great, congratulations. Now let's see what you do in this setting, and it'll challenge you again. But yes, it's wonderful to arrive at the point where you have a hard time remembering when you didn't know what you know, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Why do you think that a simple cafe works so powerfully as a doorway into inner reflection?
I don't know. It's a great question. Maybe in part because the cafe, as it flowed through me and as it's designed, when the readers read it, it's a place to sit down and talk. And it's a sit-down conversation that often leads to self-reflection. And in our society today, I find that there's a lot of attempts to escape reality on a temporary basis, whether it's your phone and you're just jumping on something to avoid the moment. But when I was a kid, one of the great things about being a kid was that you would get bored, because when you got bored, you would turn to your friends and be like, what can we do that's not boring? You know, it would inspire creativity. And often that creativity was very much tied to who and what you were. So if you wanted to do something sports-wise, you'd go do that. If you loved reading, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to go read. But I find today that there are so many easy distractions that people don't drop into boredom. And I think that's a little bit dangerous, because you end up being what I call pleasantly occupied. You're not bored, but you're definitely not doing something amazing either. You're just pleasantly occupied. It's like a low-level drug. And so I think that one of the great challenges of society in this moment is to allow yourself to craft out what amazing looks like in your life. And that's going to require sometimes being bored so that you can get a real, genuine look at your life.
You know, the philosophies in this book could have been shared in so many different ways. The book could have been a self-help book, you know, a guidebook, you know, the sort of thing that people have to fill in, you know, write something on every page. But it flowed through you as a story, as a parable. Did you find yourself at the end of each of those 21 days going, wow, you know, where did this come from and where's it going?
What's crazy as I reflect back is I didn't even have that level of concern about it, or it just felt so right, so natural, that I never questioned the process at all. I never read what I had typed that day. I never thought, what am I going to type tomorrow? I literally just sat and let it flow through me. And I will say, though, that for me, when I went to school, I struggled very often with the nonfiction way in which content was taught. And in my textbooks, there was very often 9 or 10 pages of stuff that was like very nonfiction, data-driven. And then there was often a story. Very often in our books, it was a purple page. And in the purple page, they would tell a story, and that story basically illustrated everything that had been in the 9 pages before that. And I lived for the purple stories. I would not have gotten through school were it not for the purple pages. And so I think the story flowed through me in a way that works best for my brain. And, I think 70% of books are fiction or they're written in story format. And so, yes, I know some people love the nonfiction format. It doesn't work great for my brain. And so I suppose that part of the reason it flowed through me that way was so that I would get it and that I would understand the message.
You went from the pilot's cockpit, straight to the world stage, global stage as a thought leader. I mean, that must have seemed pretty surreal to you and pretty overwhelming. You'd never thought that.
No.
What did you make of it?
I distinctly remember having the experience where, because what happens typically as an author is when your book starts to become successful, people ask you to speak. And it's somewhat ironic, Sandie, because the two skills are completely unrelated. Your ability to process a thought and turn it into the written word in a way that someone would get value from is so different because you often do that work alone. It's very introspective and it's solo. And so that's so different from standing on a stage and giving a performance, which is what a great speech is, to a very large audience who then is going to interact with you, not just from the stage to the audience level, but also afterwards and doing signings and the rest of that. So the two skill sets are completely different. And I distinctly remember having the moment when I thought to myself, I don't know why they're asking. Like, I'm just me. I'm just average, ordinary John. Like, what do I have to share? Who am I to stand on a stage and talk about anything? Like, I'm just me. And the epiphany that I had around this goes back to what we were talking about before. The question for all of us is not, who am I to? And then insert the dream of choice. Who am I to backpack around the world? Who am I to host a podcast? Who am I to paint a painting? That's not really the question. The question is, who am I not to? Like, everybody has something special about them. Everybody has talents. Everybody has genius. Everybody's got curiosity or a desire to try things. And so allowing ourselves to say, who am I not to? Somebody's out there doing this. It might as well be me. It took me a long time to get comfortable with that. But once I did, then I got more comfortable standing in front of an audience. And I will say the very biggest stage I was on early, I was on a stage where I spoke after Barack Obama, and there was 18,000 people in the audience. And so the combination of those two things was a little intimidating. I'm not going to lie. The good news is that when you're speaking to 18,000 people, the only thing you can see because of all the spotlights is the first 4 or 5 rows. So there's 18,000 people there, but you can't see them. So it's not as intimidating as you might think.
Yeah. John in the story ate an awful lot of food while he was in that cafe. And I had to wonder, what's the purpose in him eating so much? Is there a metaphor in that?
Yeah. What's interesting is, so again, the story completely flowed through me and then I read it. And of course, I've gone back and read it many, many times since then. I always say the very first person who's supposed to read the stuff that flows through me is me. Like, the life lessons are something I need to learn and address and deal with, or have the opportunity. Nobody needs to do anything, but they have the opportunity to do. I had the opportunity to do. And in the process of going back, there are so many subtle metaphors in the book and in the way the story unfolded. It's crazy to me that I didn't feel them as it was flowing through me. To me, the food is absolutely a metaphor for knowledge. So John he's open and ready for more than he thinks he's capable of receiving. And that's what Casey and Mike in the cafe know already. That's one of the things I love about their essence, is that they are on a higher level of advancement than he is in sort of the life journey and the way that life works journey. So they see in him potential that he doesn't see in himself when he walks into the cafe. And the food is a bit of a metaphor for that. And as he's going through the experience in the cafe, he's able to accept more, absorb more, learn more.
So if you went back to the cafe today, what would you order and what questions would you ask yourself?
Yeah, it's funny when I wrote the sequel, which is Return to the Cafe on the Edge of the World, I remember Sandie, so I don't write just to write. Like, I don't say, it's been a year and a half, I'm going to write a new book. I only write when something really, really wants to come out of me. and something is telling me it's time to be written. And my process is pretty straightforward. For about 2 months, I will capture ideas and thoughts as they're coming to me, and I'll put them all in a single document. And it comes to me in the middle of the night. It comes to me when I'm taking a shower. So it's like this channel that opens and the ideas start flowing. And then at the end of the 2 months, around that time, something inside says to me, it's time to start. And so I will go back through and read everything that is in the document. And then I will sit very often in this park by my house and I will start the writing process. And I remember writing the opening 2 chapters to Return to the Café on the Edge of the World. And when he comes back to the cafe, this sense of home, like, just flowed through every cell of that is me. And it just felt so right and so comfortable and so like, this is where I belong. I can't even describe it to you. That's what tells me that this is something that is way bigger than a story. And certainly readers' feedback tells me the same thing. There is an essence, there is an energy. The cafe exists on a different plane of reality. And when you go there, you get to experience something different than this plane of reality, for sure.
Do you get lots of people writing to you to say how the book has changed their life?
We do. I mean, it's just so humbling and so inspiring. With the book translated into 45 languages, which anytime a book is translated into 45, it means it's probably selling in 70 or 80 countries because many countries are, the same language. And so we get beautiful emails from people in so many different countries around the world. We still are getting beautiful messages from people in the Ukraine who are dealing with what they're dealing with. I remember one in particular, this young lady who was just in her early 20s wrote this beautiful message to us talking about what the cafe meant to her. And then at the bottom of the message, she put, and it's really important that I have this because I'm right now in a bomb shelter and bombs are falling on my head. And you're just like, what? Such a glimpse into reality that is that person's moment when I'm sitting in my studio, right? And so those are the ones that really, really hit you hard to realize that you have this thing that has flowed through you, and you don't know why. I don't know why it flowed through me. I tell you that if I hadn't done my part, which is go be an adventurer and demonstrate to the universe that I was willing to be in alignment with my heart and alignment with my purpose, the cafe story would exist. It just would have somebody else's name on the cover. It wouldn't be my name because it was existing already, waiting to be partnered with an author to then come into existence so people could read it. And so, yeah, it's just on a daily basis, I sort of shake my head and wonder how I got to be part of all this. I will tell you the ones that just stay with me forever, in addition to the written ones, are when I get a chance to interact with fans and hear their stories. And probably the most powerful of those, and this has happened many, many times over the years, is when someone shares their story and you learn that they were on the verge of calling it quits for the human experience. They were ready to take their own life because they felt so alone and they felt so dissatisfied with the human experience. And sometimes you get to know the full backstory, which often involves tremendous trauma. So a lot of times you don't get to know the full backstory. But to know that in some way, shape, or form, that this cafe and the messages of the people who work in the cafe helped this person realize that it's okay, that you're not alone, that we're all going through these struggles on some level, and that there is more to life and it's worth sticking around and experiencing that. Like, that is the most powerful thing ever. Yeah. I'm humbled like to a level I can't even describe to you when I have those moments.
In your book, The Big Five for Life, you expanded the questions into a life compass. Where did the 2 books connect?
Yeah, for fans who are huge fans, if you dig deep enough, there are subtle little Easter egg connection points between the 2 worlds. And it makes me smile just thinking about it, actually, now that we're having this conversation. And I guess I love it because I loved the fact that Thomas Durrell, being the human that he was and choosing to be the leader and the person and have the character that he did, that in some way, shape, or form, his life was impacted by the cafe and that the cafe was impacted by him. And so there are very subtle cross references in the works. And again, for fans who are like huge fans, they can find those in there. And to me, it's the next extension of it. Visiting the cafe is incredibly inspiring and life-changing for me. And I know that people who go there find answers that they can't find anywhere else, which is also the case for me. The Big Five for Life is more And what's the way in which I apply this on a day in, day out basis for my life? Now, that said, it's also very thought-provoking. The concept in their museum day is something I cannot even tell you, Sandie, how many times people have come up to me and talked about museum day and what that meant to them. And people will very often send me emails and like, make a great museum day. So it's actually become part of the way that they think about life. And so that's awesome, because that means you wake up in the morning and you're reflecting on something that is going to help you move your life in the direction you want it to go. Because life is short. It's 28,900 days statistically. That's it. And it goes by super fast. So it's either we consciously think about these things and carve out the life that we want to live, or we get to the end with regrets, which would be super sad.
So explain more about the museum day.
So this idea came to me. I was walking through a tiny little museum, and I love museums. And I was walking through this tiny little museum, just 2 rooms, in a place called Winter Garden, Florida. And there were all these pictures of people from high school. But these pictures were from a long, long time ago, kind of like the origin of this little town. And I had this thought as I was looking at these pictures of people who were 17, 18 years old. I wonder what they did. Like, I wonder what happened to that human. You know, did they ask out that person that they always thought was so cute and they always wanted to get to know better? Did they courageously go on the adventure that they dreamed of going on? You know, did they do it? Did they live the life they were dreaming of? Because I'm looking at pictures of people who have passed away, even though I'm looking at them when they were 18 and life was so full of potential. And so this idea stuck with me and rolled around in my head for quite a while. And when I wrote The Big Five for Life, it brought to mind an idea. And here's the idea. Imagine if every moment of your life was recorded. Everything you did, everything you said, all the places that you went, all the ways in which you spent your time. And then towards the end of your life, a museum is going to be built to honor you. Only the museum will show your life exactly how you actually lived it. And so if you spent 80% of your awake time at a job that you didn't love, doing things with people that you didn't love, then 80% of your museum is going to be filled with that. And there will be pictures and videos and giant kiosks. And to the contrary, if you loved spending time with your family or your friends or pursuing a particular passion or hobby, but for no matter what reason, you only spent 2% of your life on those loves, then only 2% of your museum is going to be dedicated towards that. Maybe just a couple of pictures near the exit door. And then imagine if the way that life works after, so heaven or the afterlife or however you perceive this whole thing works, that it actually consists of you being the tour guide for your own museum for all of eternity. And so the main character, Thomas, explains this concept to his protege in the story. And again, I can't tell you the number of people that has reframed the way they look at every single day, because in truth, we are building our museum every single day, whether we're happy about that or we're not happy about that. We are consciously making choices or unconsciously making choices, which are going to determine what is in that museum, what images, what pictures, etc. And so I love it because it just completely reframes the choices we make and the way in which we approach life.
Mm-hmm. You found a purpose that you didn't know was there for you. Do you think that purpose is something we discover or something that we create?
Another great question. I think there is an issue with purpose these days for a lot of people in that they're waiting for the giant booming voice from the sky. You know, it's like, Sandie, your destiny is like, and that would be awesome if that actually happens. I don't find that to be the norm. Certain people, yes, certain people have that where they literally have known since as long back as they can remember, they wanted to be a doctor, a veterinarian, whatever. But I find for the vast majority of people, it's much more about doing what I call sampling. And so trying on different realities and seeing which ones feel right. Now, within us, there are dramatic clues about that. The kid who you were at your most authentic core is very often so aligned with who you are from a values perspective and from a purpose perspective that if you think back about the type of books you love to read and the heroes in those stories and ask yourself, what did you love about those heroes? Very often that is tied to your purpose. Like that's who you are in your most authentic state. So that's a very easy technique to help figure that out. And sometimes you just try things on until they feel right and you realize, yep, that's me. Now, I will tell you for my sake, what do I get to do in my life now as an author? I get to write content or have content flow through me, which helps people. And if I look back in the rearview mirror of life, I was always a very empathic kid. Like I felt the pain of others around me. I wanted to help people who were in pain. And so I would say, yeah, that purpose was already there. I just didn't know what way it was going to manifest in terms of my everyday life.
Yeah. Do you think we can miss our purpose? It's too late, you didn't see it there. Or do you think it's always there waiting for us?
Well, I think that in the eyes of the universe, one is the same as a million. And so if your purpose is to bring joy and love to someone, if you did that one day for 1 hour, you've achieved your purpose. I don't think it needs, in our society today, it's so easy to get caught up in the big numbers. Oh, how many people bought the book? How many people listen to the podcast? How many millions or billions of dollars do you have? So I think it's very easy to get caught up in those big, big numbers. But again, in the eyes of the universe, like, listen, my entire life, the entire life of everyone on the planet right now and all the net worth and all the rest of that, 100 years from now, no one will care. Like, it'll be an absolute data point of nothingness in the history of the planet. And we are one planet in the midst of an entire universe. Like, our galaxy consists of all of these incredible stars, planets, etc. But we are one of 125 billion other galaxies. We're nothing, right? And so I think getting too attached to that kind of stuff misses the point. The point is, as I get it, which we can talk about this because I think it's an awesome perspective to think about, what is the point of the human experience? And I think it's to enjoy life. I think when we enjoy life and we contribute whatever is our contribution, it could be a thought, it could be an act of kindness, it could be a piece of intellectual capital, a form of art, a way to love another human, a way to demonstrate love to another human. When we have those awarenesses, we contribute to what I call the collective consciousness. And the collective consciousness is like a giant database of knowledge that exists. And it has existed for all of humanity, all of history of humanity. And it probably doesn't just exist for humans either. It's probably a collective consciousness for all living things. And the minute we make that contribution, well, we have added something. We've made our life relevant. And the nice thing, as I understand it, is that once you contribute to the collective consciousness, that contribution is now instantly available to every other life form. And so when Sandie has a great thought or an intuitive moment, I, halfway around the planet, can tap into that thought, even though it wasn't my initial original thought. And so I like that. I like the fact that we can be adding to this. I'm not really sure why the universe cares. That's sort of as you start to head down this rabbit hole, it gets very interesting. Why does the universe need us to do that? I don't know, but that seems to be the trend. What do you think?
Well, there are two things I want to say to that. What about the people who cannot enjoy life, like that girl in a bomb shelter in Ukraine, or somebody in Gaza or Israel or whatever? I mean, those people are not in a place where they can really enjoy life. So are they living a purpose there?
I don't know if it's necessarily always about enjoying. I don't think the human experience is constantly a smile moment. But the minute someone demonstrates empathy for another human being, compassion for another human being, generosity for another human being, that also adds to the collective consciousness. It shows that we are more than just the ego of ourself. And so I think about that stuff all the time, that why do some humans have to go through atrocities and others do not? And the only answer I can come to that makes any sense in terms of dealing with it is that some are more courageous than others, some take on bigger challenges than others. And in the face of those things, they are able to demonstrate kindness and compassion and empathy and generosity in a way that is life-changing compared to the way that I perhaps do it in my setting, which is much more comfy, much more cozy. And so, yeah, I wish it didn't exist. I wish everything was just flawless, easy, and happy for people. And I will continue to probably wish that until the day that I die. And so maybe that's even part of it now that I'm saying it out loud. So knowing that reality exists for someone else on the planet, what am I doing to be compassionate? What am I doing to be empathetic? What am I doing to be kind and caring and helpful, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, it's in the book that I wrote called Life Safari, the main character's name is Mama Gombe. She's this very wise, very incredible, she's a very old, very wise African woman. And she taught, this story flowed through me over the course of 10 days. And the wisdom from her is so profound and so beautiful. And she talks about the point of the human experience. And one of the examples she gives is that if life consisted of playing football, right? And you show up at the pitch and you've got your ball and it's a beautiful pitch and there's the goal. And there you are and you're kicking and running down the field and kicking goals. And that would be fun. It would be fun for about 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But at some point it would start to become boring. Well, why would it be boring? Well, because there's nobody to play with. You're just there by yourself. And so what would we add to make it more fun? Well, we'd add friends and people that are enjoyable to be around. And so great. Now you've got 5 other people with you and you're all kicking the ball up, down the pitch and scoring goals and scoring goals and scoring goals because you're all on the same team, you know? And after about, I don't know, a half an hour of that would start to get pretty boring too. And so what would we possibly do to make it more interesting? Well, we would add a goalie and then we would add a couple of defenders. Right. So by adding these challenges, we actually make the game of life more interesting and we grow. Can we demonstrate sportsmanship now that we've added a defender? Or is my ego so big that it only matters that I win? Right. And so this to me was the wisdom that she shared through that story. And this is the analogy that she used. And that completely reframed everything for me. So, yeah, I will tell you one other one if you want. This will completely reframe, I think, for anyone who's listening. It has been like life-changing for me. And she also shared it in the way that the story unfolded. And she said, everyone's an actor in the play. So the whole thing is a giant play. Everyone's an actor in the play. And sometimes we're called to be the supporting actor. Sometimes we're called to be the lead actor. And sometimes we're just an extra. Like we're just a random person in the storyline. We have a role, we have a job to do, but we think we're the lead actor. We're actually the extra in that moment. And that could be as simple as you're walking down the street, you see someone who's frowning, you smile at them, automatically the person smiles back. And that is your only interaction with that person the rest of your life. But on that moment, on that day, they needed a smile and you gave it to them. You were just an extra in the show. But here's the deal, and this is where it gets so profound, that everyone in our life, including the people who have created great stress for us, great trauma for us, they're actors too. And that before we were born, we made an agreement that this is the type of life that I want to experience. These are the types of challenges I want to try and overcome. Because I was a soul, right? I know that I'm eternal. I know that I'm not just the human experience. So now I pick my challenges, what I want to experience, the ways in which I want to grow, and then I enter the human form. But now I don't remember what I picked. I'm a baby, right? I probably have wisdom as a baby. I'm not communicating that to the other adults, but I have wisdom about what I picked. But then as the days progress, I no longer remember what I picked. And then these challenges are going to start to surface. And people will be the actors to demonstrate the challenge. But underneath it all, they're still an actor. And they're playing their parts to perfection, Sandie, because they have to be. Because otherwise they wouldn't be believable, right? And so if you grew up with a parent who yelled a lot, they have to really be a great actor to really make you convinced that they don't love you in that moment when they're screaming at you at the top of their lungs. But underneath it all, they're saying, see through me. I'm just an actor in the play. See through me. Rise above this challenge. And that when we die, this is what Mama Gombe says, that when we die, we actually see all of these other people who were these parts in our play. And we see them for what they were, just another soul, just another spirit who agreed to play the rough part, right? That's a lousy part to be asked to play, which is the parent who's screaming their head off because they don't get the love. And that just so reframed everything for me that, man, what is that person's sacrifice as a soul to play that part so that I can grow?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to invite those people into your life. It doesn't mean you need to keep having them in your circumference, your periphery. But it reframed the idea of forgiveness for me. It reframed the idea of what is that person's role in my life and how can I grow?
You have said that the currency of success is minutes, not money. How do we reclaim the minutes in a world where everything is geared to monetize everything?
Yeah, I wrote about this in the Café on the Edge of the Worlds back when I wrote, or the original story flowed through me, but it related to something that I was observing when I backpacked around the world, that so much of life seems to be about acquiring. But here I was backpacking around the world, owning nothing but what I could carry in a small backpack. And I was so happy, because I was doing the things that mattered to me, the things that brought me joy. And I think this is maybe tied to the algorithm, that as we have more access to self-development resources, we have more access to the consciousness of thought about how to live a happy life. The algorithm is sort of ramping it up on the other side to say, let me keep challenging them. So let me bring commercialism to a whole new level. Like, we'll ramp up the ad budget to about 16 billion for the planet or something. And so as a human being, what can we do to not get caught up in this? And there's a number of tips I would recommend. First of all, think about the things that you love to do that actually require no money. And I'll give you a short list, and I would love to hear some of yours, Sandie. Reading a great book requires almost no capital investment. And then you can lend them to your friends too, and you can swap books, or you can get it from a library. Riding your bike or going for a walk in the woods requires no capital investment for the most part. Or if you do on a bike ride, like, okay, you buy the bike and you can use that thing for 10 years. The amount it costs you per minute is very negligible. And so I created this thought experiment for myself, was taking a look at the ways in which you spend your money and how many minutes do you get per dollar spent. And you don't want to do this for everything that you spend money on, because it would become like overwhelming. But having this perspective, like, oh, I go to a movie and the movie costs $10 and I get 120 minutes of joy from that movie experience. And therefore you do the basic math and you're like, oh, I got a ratio of 12 minutes per dollar spent for that. And just having that simple little concept in your head helps you look at the way you spend your money and the value that you're getting from it. And it really reframes it. So I like having a short list of things that require no capital investment, no money. And then I like having this concept in my head, and then just being super conscious about what brings you genuine joy versus what is a very temporary fix. Because I think most of us at some point in our life go through the consumeristic cycle of thinking, I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled. Oh, I know what would make me happy and fulfilled. That thing in the advertisement that they're telling me is going to make me happy and fulfilled if I buy it. But again, almost everybody has also had the experience. Great. So you buy it and it's fulfilling or makes you happy for about 5 minutes. It's like a little kid at Christmas. And then sure enough, the next day, it's just like thrown in the corner. And unfortunately for a lot of us, then the cycle is repeated and repeated and repeated. We're trying to prove to ourselves that no, the commercials are right. That's what'll make me happy. But allowing yourself to step back and say, what truly makes me happy? And then allocating your time, energy, resources towards that will much more quickly get you on the path where every day you're logging a lot of quality minutes. I don't know. What's your experience? Have you ever found yourself in the consumeristic cycle?
Oh, yes. Many times. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the things that give me the most pleasure are not the things that I can buy. They're, the things that I can invest time in, being with my grandchildren, being with my kids, being with the people I love, conversations like this. I mean, conversations like this are so important to me because they give me an opportunity to hear, to shift perceptions, to hear other people's ideas, to grow, things to think about. And also the joy of knowing that I think you've got something that needs to be heard and that other people, because I'm doing this, other people will get to hear it. There's all the joys for me. That's
awesome. Yeah. And as you were saying that, so I have a daughter, she's 18 now, and I was I'm lucky in that I had her quite late in terms of the parenting start. And so I was much more conscious as a human being at that point. And so I treasured every opportunity to spend time with her when she was little. And I think we literally read together every single night from the time that she was about 1.5 before she could read at all, and continued that until she was almost 12. And by that point, obviously she was like a ridiculously good reader, but it was just time. Like that time that we would sit together, it was about how was your day and what was the best part of the day. It wasn't even about the reading. It was just about quality time. And then we would alternate pages that we would read together. But to me, I wouldn't trade any one of those minutes for thousands, millions of dollars. Like you cannot get that time back. And it was so precious. And I bring that up in part because I was just reading something that said only 2% of parents right now are reading with their children at night. And if you're a young parent, I know it's easy to get distracted. I know it's easy to get that dopamine fix from your phone, or you're stressed out and you're tired. But trust me, if you allow yourself to turn off the phone and just immerse yourself in the collective experience of you and your little human sitting next to each other and reading a book. Even if it's the same book you've read 50 times before, it doesn't matter. Allow yourself to be a complete goofball in the way that you read it. Do voices, do characters. Like, have them tell you every time the word the appears. Like, that's how I taught my daughter to read at some point. I was like, all right, your job is the expert. Like, every time you see the word the, tell me, right? And you'll never regret it. You'll look back when they're bigger and you won't regret it for 1 second. It'll mean so much more to you than anything on your phone. But you have to experience it to know that. And that requires shutting everything else off in your world for that 1 hour at night and just immersing yourself in that experience.
That is so true. I mean, when I think back to my children, and I spent a lot of time with my grandchildren doing just that. Reading, I did a lot of with my own children, but because I was a single parent, there were a lot of things I didn't get to do with them that I can now do with my grandchildren. And I can, see the difference and regret that I never got to do those things.
Yeah. And listen, for everyone who's listening, we're all going to go through life and have some things that we look back in the rearview mirror and be like, I wish I would have done that different. Like a very long list, as a matter of fact, if I can be a proxy for myself. And that's okay. I find the general philosophy that works really good is it's okay to make mistakes. Just try to not make the same mistake twice. And so what you're describing with your life situation required you to do things a particular way. And now you, at a different phase of life, are able to look at that and be like, all right, well, I kind of get to do it again a little bit different. And so what do I want to do a little bit different? That to me is the self-awareness piece that enables us to continue to evolve, continue to craft the life that we want to live. And literally, I'll tell you this idea is that literally if you're just adjusting 1 minute per day, 2 minutes per day, and allowing yourself to be that version of yourself that you want to be, a year goes by, you're a very different person. The way you're spending your time is very different. And so it's just a great little tool, because you asked me about the minutes before. To me, just adjusting that mindset to be like, no, my minutes are the precious currency. How do I want to spend them?
Yeah. So as an inspirational speaker, I mean, what do you see most people struggling with today?
Again, this is fascinating when I'm stepping back from it and looking from a bigger picture perspective, because the struggles today are not the struggles so if you're looking at an audience of 25-year-olds, for example, the 25-year-olds today are struggling with things that are very different on a lot of levels than what I struggled with when I was 25, which is different than what someone was struggling with when they were 25 in the early 1900s, for example. We have access to pretty much unlimited supplies of food. We're very, very comfortable in our living arrangements. Houses where I live in the United States, there are more bathrooms than there are people in the average house, which is just astounding, like when you think about it. And so, again, the algorithm is constantly ratcheting up the challenge in some way. I think anxiety is at a level that I've never seen it before with people in general. And comparisons to others is a big part of that. So there's more ways that people are trying to convince you to do stuff, whether that's through advertising or you got to go to this trip or you got to eat at this restaurant or you got to listen to this band. And so I think people have a fear of missing out. Oh, there's so much going on, I don't want to miss out. There's also so many options, they struggle to make decisions. There's 10 things that you can do today in your city. What do you want to do? I don't know. I can't decide between the 10. Where if there was literally just one thing, it'd be like, oh, well, I don't want to be bored. I'm going to do that one thing. And so we're living in a very luxurious option time, but this is causing people to be stressed. And so my suggestion for that would be, this is more than ever the time to trust your intuition and to not worry about missing out. Like, it's a win. In the Big Five for Life Continued book, I learned something very powerful from a man named Jacques Gannat, and he runs the company that I talk about in that book. And he said, so much of life is an 85% decision. That it's not 100% decision. Like if you're looking at option A and option B, both of them are not great for 15% reasons, but they're different 15% reasons. So you almost can't go wrong with either A or B. It's just that the experience is going to be a little bit different in both of those. And that has been very profound when I've shared it with other people, because it takes away the stress. It's not that you're choosing which one of the 10 is perfect. None of them are perfect. They're probably if each of the 10 options call to you intuitively, then they're probably all 85% going to be great. And so just pick one. It doesn't really matter.
If you had to distill everything that you've ever written down into, one core idea for people who are struggling, what would it be aside from what you just shared?
Wow, that's a really tough one. I'm torn between two things. So again, and I just said either one is 85%, so it doesn't really matter which one of those two I pick. So I would say trust your intuition. Like, this is something that is not taught. So you're going to have to discover this one either by listening to a lot of great Sandie podcasts, or allowing your intuition to guide you to a particular book, which is harder to do when people are purchasing books online, by the way. I've had so many people over the years that walk into a bookstore. I say, how'd you find my book? They say, oh, I walked into a bookstore. It fell off the shelf in front of me, right? Or I walked in and I picked it up and I couldn't put it down. I didn't know why. I just couldn't put it down. This is the beautiful energy that exists between physical things that is missing when we're getting content online. You don't have the ability to tap into your intuition in the same way that for millions of years we've built our intuition. That said, you have this incredible tool inside of you, which is your intuition, which is a guiding connection to the cosmic algorithm, which is also a guiding connection to the entire consciousness that exists, this collective consciousness. And so what that means is that when you're faced with a decision or a choice, that you can tap into all the wisdom that is out there. Now, this is a muscle. And so at the beginning, it's something that you may not feel comfortable with. It's almost like fluency in a different language. You're going to get a sense, but you don't really know what it's saying to you. But much like learning a language, that the more you demonstrate a willingness to try, you go into a Latin restaurant and you're like, oh, gracias, right? You try the word thank you or hola, that the algorithm goes, oh, they're listening. And so let's try and keep giving them more of this. And so I would encourage you to think of times when you had a decision to make and you just had a sense of knowing which was the right one. And where did you feel that? That's a really important part of this. Did you feel it in your head? Did you feel it in your chest? Did you feel it in your goosebumps up and down your arms? Did you feel it in chills up and down your spine? Everyone's receptors are a bit different. Some people hear voices. Some people get a sense of knowing. Some people get a physical reaction. But that is the way that your intuition is going to talk to you. That is the way the collective consciousness is going to talk to you. And the more you listen to that, the more it becomes wider and wider and wider, the field, and the more your muscle grows. And I'll give you a very simple analogy of this. Everyone has had the experience of, I know I'm forgetting something. Like, you're about to walk out the door and you're like, I know I'm forgetting something. What is it? And this can either go one of two ways. So here's the way you want it to go. You know you're forgetting something, but you can't remember what it is. That's okay. You walk out the door, you get in the car, you start driving, you're 4 kilometers down the road, and then your brain goes, hey, remember that present that you were supposed to throw in the back seat? You left it at home. And you're like, oh. And so you drive back home, you get the present. And then a week later, you're about to walk out the door, and your intuition says, you're forgetting something. You're forgetting something. And this time, because you learned from last time, you're like, what is it? What am I forgetting? You can't remember, so you leave, you walk out the house, you walk outside the door, you get in the car, but this time you get in the car, you're about to turn the ignition, and your intuition goes, it's that coat that you need to return to your friend. It's still on the coat stand. You're like, oh, that's right. So now you haven't driven 4 kilometers down the road. You only got out of the house and into the car when it clicked, right? Why? Because the field is opening. You listened the first time. You demonstrated that it was important to you, and you listened. Well, the third time, you're literally going to be at the door, ready to go out. Your intuition is going to be like, you're forgetting something. You're forgetting something. You're going to be like, what is it? And it's going to remind you, oh, that book I need to return to the library, right? And here's where it gets really interesting, Sandie. The wider that field is, pretty soon, the day before you're going to be leaving, your intuition is going to be like, hey, tomorrow, remember this. And because you listened all the other times, you know what the voice sounds like when it's talking to you. And this, to me, is one of the greatest tools that is hugely underutilized in terms of how to live life in a way that is more effortless, more happy, more joyous, and less stressful. And it's a muscle. The more you use it, the better you get with it, the easier it is.
I'm going to change the subject now. You write about sea turtles, and you're on a mission to save them.
I am.
What attracted you to this particular endeavor?
Yeah, so Sea turtles are majestic and amazing creatures, and one of the most quoted parts of the Café on the Edge of the World that readers will literally quote back to me is the part about a green sea turtle that the character of Casey has a discussion about the character of John with. And the essence of the message is that when a sea turtle is swimming in the ocean, it does not swim constantly. It's really interesting. If you're ever in the water with them and you watch them, they're beautifully in tune with their environment and their surroundings. And so they will make effort and paddle their flippers when the current is with them, or if they have a very particular destination that's important for them to get to. That's when they will expend their energy. But otherwise, they will wait if the wave is coming in their face until the wave is pushing them from the other direction. So they're beautifully in tune with their environment. And the takeaway from this is that if we aren't careful, we expend so much energy all the time on things that don't matter to us, that then when we have the chance to use our resources on something that does matter to us, we're out of them. So we don't have the energy, we don't have the time, we don't have the finances, we don't have the minutes, because we've spent it on all this other stuff that didn't matter. And this is the life lesson that the character gets from this green sea turtle. And over the years, people have shown me tattoos that they've gotten with green sea turtles after reading the story. A guy had an entire RV bus that he painted with green sea turtles. People have sent pictures of their room, which is nothing but sea turtles everywhere. And so I love these little creatures. And so I have started a very, very specific way in which people can help us save green sea turtles, and all the sea turtles really, not just greens. And that is that every single book that is purchased from us, we donate funds to save the life of 10 baby sea turtles. And so all you got to do if you're listening to this, if you're like, yeah, I really enjoyed that conversation with Sandie and John, and I'm drawn to this Café on the Edge of the World book, great, pick up a copy and we will donate funds to the appropriate organizations to save the lives of 10 baby sea turtles. So we've partnered with the organizations that do an amazing job. They work on the nesting beaches, the top 40 nesting beaches around the world. The impact is immediate, and you save these little dudes who are about to head out into the sea.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh,
yeah.
It is much like you described why you enjoy doing the podcast. Like that and we're going to be posting a whole lot of videos on our channels with this. These little creatures are less than half the size of your hand. And when they're born in a nest, they arrive after about a 90-day incubation period. So the mother comes on shore to the place where she was born, which is a beautiful part of the story right from the get-go. She will come back to that same beach, and she might have been gone for 40 years, 50 years, and she will find her way to that same exact beach, that same exact spot where she was born. And then she will lay her eggs, and the eggs incubate, and then after about 90 days, they hatch. And these little hatchlings crawl themselves out from this deep hole, and there's no mom there, there's no dad there, there's no big brother or big sister there. All that's there is a tiny little sea turtle who's half the size of your hand, looking at that great big ocean, and off here she goes. It's just, honestly, it brings you to tears to see them make this trek. You're like, if that little guy can take on those level of challenges, what am I so worried about in my life? Like, I need to step up my game. Like, that's a demonstration of courage right there. And so, it's something that without our efforts, that these little guys often perish due to predation, due to human activity. And so we found very easy ways to make sure that they have a chance to make it to the ocean and start that life. And that's why I'm so passionate about it.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned your daughter earlier. If your daughter one day creates her own Big Five for life, what do you hope will be on that list?
So we've had that discussion since she was about 5 years old, actually. And here's one of the reasons why it works so great with kids. Kids don't have the same level of filters. And by filters, I mean, so I won't say that they're negative necessarily, but cultural filters of you have to do this, you can't do this, you should do this. Kids are just beautifully full of positivity and potential. And so when you ask a kid, hey, what are the things that you want to do, see, or experience this year, which is the way that I framed it. And she'd be like, oh, I want to spend more time with grandma and grandpa. Oh, great. What do you want to do with grandma and grandpa? Oh, I want to make cookies with grandma, and I want to do puzzles with grandpa. And the more you have these conversations, it enables you to be the most unbelievable parent ever, because you're tapping into exactly what your little kid loves most in the world. And so if you find out your kid is super into music, great, create the opportunity for their birthday to go see the band that they love the most. And it just opens up a wonderful guidance mechanism that enables you to give them opportunities to the things that they love and that they're curious about. And so, honestly, the only thing that I would ask for anybody putting anything on their Big Five for Life list is that it's authentic, that you take away the filters of an expectation that it needs to be something else. No, this is about you putting on your list what would enable you to do, see, and experience what you most want to do, see, or experience, so that you can get to the end of your life and have no regrets. That's the only framework that is really required for this. Yeah.
Mm. Well, we're almost out of time. So one last question. Your website is filled with motivational one-liners. My favorite is, someone is living your dream life. It might as well be you. What's yours? What's your favorite?
Ooh, I'd have to go back and look at the ones that I've picked. Everything that's on there is something that came to me in a flash of insight, and so I've put them on there. But I do love, I'll tell you what it is. So I love the one that you just said, and I'll tell you why I love it, and then I'll tell you mine. And I'll write a note to myself here. The reason I love it is because when I was growing up, I thought that so many versions of reality were only available to other people. And so that realization that someone is living my dream life and it might as well be me gave me the realization that I can choose the life that I want to choose, and I can create that life. That person and those people have created that life. There is a path that they have followed. And if I allow myself to pick 5 people who are living the life that I want to live, whether it's they get to spend more time with their kids, or they get to create entrepreneurial ventures, or they get to go travel the world, and I learn everything I can about those people, you're going to start to notice patterns in their life. And those patterns are like pathways through the jungle. Like, they've already carved the path with the machete. They've done so much of the hard work for you. All you have to do is find out what they did and then start imitating that. And then at some point you're in the jungle and you're like, actually, I want to go in that direction, and nobody's carved a path there. Great. Start using your machete and carving the path. But what I have found with the Big Five for Life, no matter what is on your list, someone at some point, somewhere in the history of the planet, has probably already done, seen, or experienced what you want to do, see, or experience. If you want to fast track your momentum, don't start from ground zero. Start from finding those people, learning about them, and then imitating what they did. And so I will add my own to that, which is this one, because they go hand in hand beautifully. And that is that every expert, from the most brilliant scientist, athlete, artist, musician, entrepreneur, they all started off knowing nothing about what they became an expert in. That, Sandie, is one of the most empowering realities that I have ever come across in my life. Because I think I used to put people on this massive pedestal, like I could never be like them. No, everyone starts off knowing nothing about what they became an expert in. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I would really love to go do this, but I don't know anything about it. Perfect. You're in exactly the right spot. So take that piece and allow it to empower you to then take a step, take another step, take another step. That's the way everybody begins.
Yeah. Well said. Very well said. John Strelecky, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Sandie. And thanks for doing what you do. Every time I do an interview, I learn something. Like, the interviewer asked me a question, a great interview, which this one was. The interviewer asked me something which causes me to think about life in a different way, and I have an aha moment. And collectively, we have created a contribution to the collective consciousness, and we definitely had those today. And that couldn't have happened if you hadn't been kind enough to have me on the show and to do the show.
And thank you for reminding us all of that. So we often search for meaning in the extraordinary, but John Strelecky reminds us that sometimes it finds us in the most ordinary places: a cafe, a conversation, a question we can't shake. The real edge of the world isn't a physical destination. It's that point where we stop running from life and begin to live it. So consider this. If you walked into that cafe on the end of the world tonight and the menu asked you, why are you here? What would your answer be? For more information about John Strelecky's books, articles, podcasts, and events, visit johnstrelecki.com, where you can also sign up for his newsletter, The Meaningful Minute. That's it for this week. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. I'll be back again at the same time next week with another episode of Between Realms and Reason. Till then, it's goodbye from me, and thank you again to John Strelecky.
If today's conversation sparked your curiosity, you'll love our other shows. The Synergy Sessions, where leading-edge thinkers collide in bold, unscripted dialogues that ignite new possibilities. Between Realms and Reason. where we journey into the mysterious consciousness, energy, and the hidden layers of reality, where science converges with spirit in ways you've never imagined. And the No BS Spiritual Book Club, where leading-edge new thought speakers, teachers, authors, and luminaries who've walked this path before you share the 10 books that had the biggest impact on their life journey. All 3 shows are available on YouTube, Spotify, Substack, and all major podcast platforms. For more information, visit sedgbeer.com. That's SEDGBEER.com.